Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I have to say I have now been playing live arena for 4 days and I am already frustrated with live arena to the point where I actually am at the point where I'm now going to probably stop playing the game mode. This isn't me being negative, this is me facing the reality of where my roster, where my list of champions is at compared to the meta of what we're facing in live arena. So we can preamble this by saying, yes, in a couple of weeks time the whole matchmaking will get better, yes, these things will happen, but it doesn't take away from the point that basically the issue with live arena for me is every single battle is pretty much a repeat of Siphi, Kymar, Rotus, Leorius, Siphi, Kymar, Duchess, Siphi, Taras. They are the same champions. And you can't actually ban out enough of these champions if you don't have the champions yourself. So I have been drafting a pretty standard sort of team of Pythian, Duchess, Necret, Constantine, and someone like a Phenax or a Baron. Basically, you have to bring 2 win conditions because of the drafting issue. You have to bring in 2 nukers. If you don't bring in 2 nukers, they ban your nuker, you haven't got a win condition. You have to bring, probably if you want to go a speed team, 2 speed boosters. It's very difficult to do. If you don't go a speed team, you need to bring in defensive utility, probably a double revive, otherwise your reviver just gets banned away. And really, you kind of need a lockout. If you don't have those champions, like my account, unfortunately, has not been graced with good luck for certain specific champions. So we don't have the champions such as the Kymars, so I can't really get a reset, a cycle. I don't have a Hefrak here. I know some people are using an Ethwi to some decent success. I don't really have that kind of champion. I don't have a Kymar here. In terms of the new champions, I have no Harima. I don't have a Yumiko here. We don't actually have things like the Taras, Marichka. Obviously, I do have some champions. I'm lucky enough to have got a Necret recently. But the problem is I have so few of these like super strong champions that actually Necret is just an easy ban, right? There is no Warlord that has to be banned. There is no Taras that has to be banned. There is no Marichka that has to be banned. I don't have the ability to put in Rotus, which is probably one of the most survivable DPS champions because of his passive. I don't have that luxury. So what I'm finding in live arena is my account is getting banned out. Some of the niche picks that I actually have for arena, such as a Baron, such as a Constantine here, such as a Necret, the things that I would use to actually try and compete in the top end Platinum arena, I'm not able to do in live arena because essentially those few options that I do have available to me are getting banned out. Now there is some hope to my roster here. I've started looking at trying to get Mighty Uko properly built out. So we're looking at building him out in a stun set. That seems to be really popular at the moment, seems to be really successful, but I just need to build him up. So perhaps I can start climbing a little bit with the Mighty Uko, but that'll probably just mean that Mighty Uko gets banned out instead of Necret. So at least I can like force a bit of protection to the Necret the Great. But my main concern, and the reason why I wanted to record this video, is drafting in live arena is getting stale already. The top players up here are basically drafting the same 5 champions. The ban phase is irrelevant. The draft phase is irrelevant. Unless you have a champion of equal strength, you cannot compete in live arena. It's simple as that. There is no strategy. There's no diversity. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, it's really fun. It was fun in bronze when I actually could fight and I could make some decisions. I don't feel like I have any decisions in the drafting phase anymore. So it's basically, what can I draft in my team that isn't going to get banned out? That is the only strategic decision. So what I want to do in this video is not dwell on the negatives, because I don't really like feeling this like negative energy, which I've got a lot in arena, which is why I'm really debating just not playing the game mode for a while until it settles down, because it's starting to get to me a little bit. But I actually want to look at, if I was doing this now, how I would have set out the drafting phase for live arena, because that's the problem here. The drafting phase is not diverse, and we're going to use a couple of terminologies that I want to define before we get started, and then I'm going to propose a better drafting system that should make it more interesting for end game and even early game players who don't necessarily have all these big picks. Now, there are 2 terms that I'm going to be using when I'm explaining my drafting proposal phase here. We're going to be talking about draft diversity and strategic diversity. These are the 2 things that I think is really lacking in live arena right now. So when I'm talking about draft diversity, I'm actually talking about the ability to pick various and multiple different types of champions and produce multiple different win conditions and strategies. So I'm talking about more diversity than pick 4 champions win game. I'm talking about being able to pivot different champions in the draft and being able to introduce more variety. We see a lot of draft diversity in PvE in this game. You can run a clan boss with a traditional team, an unkillable team, a block damage team. You can run some really clever fast boosting teams. You can run the infinity comp. You can even do it in normal dungeons. There's some speed teams. You've got the solo farmers. You've got the not so fast teams, but you can still get it done. You've got it in Doom Tower, where you either go fast kill, you go control, you go like one shot strategy, reset strategy. There's diversity in the game in PvE, but in Arena there is no draft diversity. That is a problem we need to fix, and that is what I'm talking about in terms of draft diversity. When I talk about strategic diversity, I'm actually talking about the ability for you to make strategic decisions with your own game knowledge, with your own experience and ability to actually change the direction that you're taking in your drafting phase. This is you going, well, you've picked something, I'm going to pick something to counter that. This is kind of those strategic decisions that you can make that can actually introduce variance, draft diversity, and actually make it engaging. So it isn't just pick the champions, win the game, it doesn't matter how good or bad I am. It's actually, okay, well, this guy's picked this champion, I can pivot to this ability, I can make a strategic decision here, I can choose to ban this, that has a strategic impact. That's what I mean by strategic diversity. It's about the decisions you make, not necessarily the draft you select. It's about how you make those decisions. So this is what I'm going to propose the arena drafting for Live Arena should have been in order to fix these problems. The main problem we've got for draft diversity is pretty much Yumiko, Taras, Marichka, Warlord, Siphi, Duchess. They are way too strong that you basically don't need to pick anything else. And if you pick anything else, they generally can't beat it. If you get full lockout on a Warlord or Yumiko, you have lost the arena fight. You lose in draft. That's not strategic diversity. It's not draft diversity. It basically means the top end arena is going to be the same things over and over again. We see it in Classic Arena right now, where it's basically defenses are all Marichka, Taras with pretty much polymorph blessing. That is what is happening in the Platinum Arena right now. But at least in Platinum Arena, in Classic Arena, when you do the Platinum reset, you don't get banned out, right? So you can try and at least preempt what the enemy is going to have and start building strategies. So at least in Classic Arena, you get strategic diversity. In Live Arena, that strategy is taken away from you because essentially you have to draft to avoid the ban. So what I'm basically proposing here is more options for banning, in order for you to be able to stop the power picks always coming through. Sometimes you might allow the Taras to come through if you can take out this Siphi Duchess. Sometimes you might allow them to pick a lockout if you know you've got a team that can build against it, but there are other components in that person's roster that means that would stop you from winning it. That's fine. This is why I'm proposing triple ban phase, and I'm proposing then some more draft diversity. So let's get into this particular part. This is the main reason why I wanted to do this video. How does this work? So we have a pre-phase roster selection. So at the start of a week, it could be a weekly time period. It doesn't really matter. They could decide to basically make a day a roster selection. The idea is you will basically pre-select 16 champions from your roster that you will want to use in Live Arena. That will be locked then for the week, which means you are restricted to those 16 champions, and you can probably change it in a week for free. I would say if you could offer the players a chance to reset this roster selection if they've made a critical mistake for a cost of 50 gems. But generally the idea is you pick your 16 champions, that's what you've got for the week. All non-selected champions then would not be applicable for Live Arena. This creates a narrowed down list of champions, plus it helps you also identify the champions you want to use in the arena. So often in Live Arena, I've been scrolling across my roster because we don't have a search bar, trying to find the one champion. You know, we now got those new arena tags and we can sort by champion tags. That's great. But really, we should just be able to say, these are the champions I plan to use. Just show me these champions so I don't have to look at all 200-300 list on my champions. So once you've got your roster selection, then you can join Live Arena. And when you get match made, you go into the first round of the new Live Arena, where you basically go into a ban round. So what this allows you to do is at the same time, so this is simultaneous, so I'm banning at the same time as the opponent, I can look at the opponent's 16 champions and I can cherry pick 3 champions in that 16-man roster to ban. So if I see he's got a Marichka Taras component, I can go, do you know what? I'm just going to take that out. If I see he's got a Warlord Yumiko, I can take that out. I will say as well, duplicate champions are not acceptable on any tier of arena. Get rid of that concept. I do not want to see quad Yumiko, quad Warlords picked in this 16-man roster. That is boring, okay? It should be, I've got a Duchess, that's the one I want to use, okay? If you've got 2 Duchesses, you can make one for PvE, one for PvP. You should only ever be able to pick one for arena. So in this phase, I'm looking at the enemy. I've got 30 seconds to basically ban 3 champions on that enemy roster. Then we go into draft round 1. So this is very much similar to what we've got right now. It'll 50-50, flip a coin, because that's the fairest way to basically do kind of a round selection. And basically, whoever picks first gets to pick 1 champion. Then then I get to pick 1 or 2 if it's the opponent. Then the opponent gets to pick his 2nd and 3rd champion, and I finally pick my 3rd champion. There will be 20 seconds maximum to select, because we don't need 60 seconds now, because we only are looking at, by this point, 13 champions that I can pick from. So it's much easier to select the champions you want, because you don't have to go looking for it. Therefore, we can cut the actual draft time down. So by the end of this phase, I should have 3 champions. The enemy should have 3 champions. Then we go into ban round 2. So what this round is, the players can basically ban 2 further champions from the opponent's roster, not the team that they've selected. We can't ban any pre-selected champions, only the champions that are in their roster. So if you've already banned 3, they've picked 3, there should be 10 champions remaining. I should be able to go in and ban 2 further champions. And this is simultaneous, and I've got 20 seconds. Then the final draft is basically an alternating draft where they pick their 4th, I pick my 5th, and vice versa, right? So I pick 4, they pick 4, I pick 5, they pick 5. I've got it the wrong way on this slide here. But basically, it's 1 by 1. And again, you've got 20 seconds per player to actually pick these. And these must be picked from your roster. So you're now with 5 selected champions for the arena. Obviously, the arena fight can only be 4 champions. So the final ban round is very much like the in-game. I get to ban 1 champion on that team. This time, it's not the roster. It is the team that you've selected. I get to ban 1 champion on that team. And banning is done simultaneously again on a 22nd. Then you go into the team arrangement phase, and this is a big thing in my opinion. I should be able to move my champions around whichever way I want to, okay? Drafting should be about trying to pick a composition, not necessarily then the mechanics of the game, because champions like Nekret should go last in the turn order, because effectively, if an ally protected under Nekret gets hit, they get hit first, they'll get the shield. If Nekret is above and dies, then the ally doesn't get a shield. There are game mechanics that are very important with team order that shouldn't force me to then pick them in a specific order to make sure they're in the team order, because that's what's happening in live arena now. The order, apart from the leader, in which you draft them into your team is the order they go into battle, which is a problem. So players should be able to restructure and pick their leader however they want. They've got 20 seconds to do that as well. That is the draft, in my opinion, of how it should work. Because I did do a video last week and I said, I'm not happy with the ban being at the end. They should put it in the middle. And as I looked at the comments and people were right. Simply moving the ban into the middle doesn't really help solve the problem, because you'll just hide your Taras Marichkas, your Warlords, your Yumikos. It actually limits options even further. So it's probably even worse than having it at the end. So I can kind of understand why people were like, say, no, I hard disagree with you. So I just felt like when I was talking about it, the ban, I knew there was something wrong with the draft phase. So that's kind of why I was like, we need to move it to the middle. We need to do something. But actually it needs a bigger problem. It needs a bigger solution. So with this phase in total, obviously one of the key things that people will talk about is, oh, it's going to take a very long time. There's not sort of alternating rounds. I actually think you can make it a lot quicker. Time is a big factor in Raid right now. Right now, the maximum amount of time it would take you, excluding any server lag, to actually draft a team is 420 seconds. Because you get a pick phase that takes 60 seconds. That alternates between 3 different phases per player. So you get 6 individual windows of 60 seconds. There's also a ban phase of 30 seconds and a leader pick phase of 30 seconds, which are done simultaneously. So right now, a live arena draft can take anywhere up to 7 minutes. Now, in my new proposed drafting, there's a 70-second total of ban phases. There's 3 ban phases, but they total up to 70 seconds. There's 8 windows of pick phases at 20 seconds each, and a 20 seconds of team picking. So you actually have 250 seconds, or just over 4 minutes. That means there is scope to lift some of those 20 seconds up to 30 seconds. Maybe the last team pick is 30 seconds just to help you organize it. There's some space in there. But what I wanted to point out here is my drafting proposal, even though it's more complex, there's more steps, would actually save you more time. Now, what do we get when we have this draft diversity? Well, firstly, when I pick 16 champions, that's a pretty big roster that I can select. That means that there's a very wide pool. I can select my Warlord, my Yumiko, my Duchess. I can select multiple nukers if I want. I can draft multiple strategies. I could have 3 attack-based nukers that I might want to use for 3 different reasons, a couple of defense-based nukers, a couple of revivers, a couple of utilities, some lockouts. I've got the option for my roster. But now I have the ability with this draft phase to actually change the team that I'm going to pick, because I might be able to adapt mid-draft. Say like I pick Warlord, Marichka, Yumiko, Taras in my roster, and the enemy comes along and he goes, no, you're not going to get Warlord, you're not going to get Yumiko, and you're not going to get Marichka. Okay, so now he's used most of his bans on taking out some of my OP picks, so I can look to maybe go a speed team, I can look to go somewhere else, because actually he's now maybe not capable of banning out all my speed boosting options, so I've always got one, because he's committed all of his bans to lockout. It means that I can actually reintroduce speed teams into Live Arena. I can reintroduce go second defensive-based nukers. The worst thing at the moment with current Live Arena is if I was to draft let's take for example a Constantine and a Phoenix, or a Constantine and a Baron, or a Constantine even and a Jorgid, they kind of depend on an attack buff. So if I don't draft multiple attack buff champions in my team in Live Arena at the moment, they kind of don't hit hard enough because the enemy teams are so tanky. And I can't then pivot halfway through. It's not like I can draft 5 people and then go, I'm going to pick a defense nuker now because they banned my Duchess, and that was my only attack buff, because it's over. The ban happens at the end. Where with this team, I can kind of go, well, they banned a lot of my attack buffers, so I'm going to have to probably go for my defensive-based nukers. Maybe at draft round 2, the ban that actually came out was on the Duchess, so now I'm going, right, I definitely don't want to draft any attack-based nukers, I want to go defense-based nukers. The options for draft diversity go up dramatically. There will always be champions that get instant banned out. The negative side of this system would be you probably will never be able to use your power picks in Arena. But the positives, Arena teams will be diverse. It's not going to be Taras, Marichka, Yumiko, Duchess. Taras, Marichka, Sify, Duchess. Taras, Warlord, Marichka, Duchess. That is all I guarantee you, in a month, that is what top Arena will be. Every single team, every single fight. And I would imagine a lot of endgame players will stop playing Live Arena once they get Quintus, because I don't really feel like they care enough about the area bonuses. And even if they did, they might just blast out the ones they really care about, which probably is Hydra. The other ones, they're not going to probably do Clan Boss, because most of them one kit. And unless you're really into Clan Boss like myself, it's not that valuable. You're probably just going to go maybe Fire Knight, maybe Hydra, peace out. Because you can't really make Spider much faster. Dragon is pretty easy to do with Theodore and Stultus. It's like 30-second farm. You don't really need the stats there. They're not going to bother with the game mode because it's not going to be entertaining. In actuality, I think it's probably easier to stay at a higher ranking in Live Arena than fight it. Because why would you introduce RNG into your ranking? Once you hit number 1, just maybe fight once every 5 days so you don't derank, and you probably stay at number 1 for a very long time, because everyone beneath you is going to be win trading to try and climb above you whilst you're just sitting there on the higher ranking. So I feel like if we don't change the draft, we don't introduce this, we are not going to have any draft diversity. The draft has no strategic gameplay. It's basically what am I picking that my team doesn't get banned out? You have to go into Live Arena right now as this is the team that I have to pick. And then I have to go, okay, what's my 5th champion that I can tempt to ban away that isn't going to cause my team to instant lose? 9 times out of 10 in the Silver Arena that I'm fighting right now, I can tell you before the fight even starts, I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. And that is terrible gameplay. It's just boring. And it's actually going to stop people playing the game. I've seen some people really don't like it in Bronze because they can't win fights because their roster is just not good enough. They're not developed accounts. They don't have the right champions. And, I can understand that. That will take a while to adapt. I understand that at the moment, everyone is in the same tier and it's really difficult. But I just think system-wise, it's a problem. So that's what I'm proposing. That's what I think should happen. I don't think anything is going to happen to it because we've been waiting for Platinum Arena changes for months and months and months and months, and nothing's ever really changed to that. But I actually think that Live Arena, if nothing changes in its current form, could be a dead game mode within 6 months because I think it is not, there's no diversity. And unless Plarium are going to come in and start banning some of these champions, you know, and even bug fixing them, because that's a big problem. Harima, for example, her passive reduces Soul Reap ignore defense. You've got issues such as Taras can bypass immunity sets because he places it before the immunity set gets placed. So that's kind of like really difficult to solve. You've got so many weird bugs like, you know, the Soul Reap doesn't activate, the Block Revive doesn't activate, Yumiko can send Block Revive back with the Hex debuff. Like, these things that you can actually try and draft some win conditions of, half the time they bug and you can't. So unless you really have the power picks, Live Arena's not for you, which means half the player base are probably not going to play it, which means it leaves the Krakens to slug it out at the top. And how long are they going to really want to do it for a couple of percentages in PvE content? Sure, they'll want the number 1 rank, but it's not like there's any incentive. The sets are not that good. Zeal is basically good for Shamael, in my opinion, and maybe some 0% ignore defense nukers or 100% ignore defense nukers, but in most scenarios, Savage Lethal is going to be more farmable and better. I don't think you pick the other set over Reflex, because if you want Reflex, you want 40% chance to reset the skill cooldown. You can't find the 10% in stats. You can find 12% speed, which is on average like 10 speed in your gear, right? It's a roll and a half, whereas you can't find the 10% chance to reset a skill. So I can't really see anyone picking the new set over Reflex. So there you go. Probably another rant video a little bit about Arena, but I've tried to turn this into a positive. This is what I think the drafting phase should be. You have a specific set number of roster to make drafting quicker and more painless for players. At the moment, drafting takes too long. And also at the moment, drafting takes too long for you to just lose, right? That's a big problem. If you're spending 5 minutes drafting and you just lose, that's going to be another negative for the system here. You should have the ability to select your champions. Then I should be able to target ban some of those champions in your roster. You pick 3, then I target ban 2 more in your roster. Then you pick 1, 2 more champions, and then I target ban 1 from your team. That gives me abilities to force you into different strategies. That gives me the ability to flex strategies mid-draft. We increase strategic diversity because now I can actually think strategically about what I draft and how I'm positioning my teams and how I'm putting teams together. And we increase draft diversity because you're not going to see the same 8 Void legendary champions in every single goddamn team. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you think about the current drafting situation. Maybe I'm just a little bit worn out from fighting a lot of Live Arena and Silver and just not getting anywhere. Perhaps I'm overthinking it, but I do think, in my opinion, the draft is the most important and fun aspect of Live Arena that has been a huge miss from Plarium. It's been a big miss. It's a problem. And unless something changes, it's going to get very stale for a lot of you players climbing up through the bronze rankings. Once you hit Silver, it gets a lot worse because it's a lot more, it takes a lot longer for the Krakens to climb higher than Silver. We still haven't seen anyone in Gold yet, and it's been nearly a week since it's been out. And I would have expected them to have climbed there almost instantly. But it takes a while because you've got to get through the basically losing 4 points every time you lose. So if you're not at an 80% win rate, climbing is very difficult. Let me know if you think this new drafting system would be better, or if you think you have any other ideas. I really think we need to put together a bit of a list of different concepts for Plarium to kind of say, look, the current system is not good enough. We need to change it. Here's what our ideas are. Maybe they'll listen to some of it. Maybe they won't. Who knows? Probably they won't. But, you know, we can always pray. But yeah, I guess that's the end of the rant. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.